All right, I know some people.
All
are
right, we
excited
got
to see him
patch
today,
notes,
so that's
boys.
great.
We got patch notes.
So let's go for patch notes.
Here we go.
We have a couple of
Let's
things
see
to
what they
talk
got
about.
for us. Let's see what they got
Pretty
for us.
interesting. First up, Valkyrie changes. So Valkyrie right now is overperforming. We've got a lot of data, a lot of
she is
feedback from a lot
overperforming.
of players.
Hold on.
He's a bit too strong.
we
Hey,
hear you.
he's on a roll
She's
already.
banned and competitive. We wanted to try to act like as fast as we could. So this is going to be coming out tomorrow. So that's great. Hopefully it'll help resolve a lot of the issues.
Coming out
So I'm
tomorrow.
going to go through like the changes so everybody kind of
Shield tackle does 18.
understands. I'll kind of explain some of the things there, right? So first up,
It
shield
doesn't
tackle
move as
strike. I
far.
think one of the biggest things that I've heard from
No
a lot
longer
of
chains
people,
will miss.
it dealt
Ooh, you get
20
GB
damage,
now.
it'll
You get
deal
GB.
18.
Yeah.
So again, it does, like it's it's not
Chain
a massive
heavies are
damage
down.
decrease, but it's
Heavy
enough
finishers
to
are down.
make a difference. And
Zone attack
it
is
was that
slower
high essentially because when we used to play this,
and has less reach. Wow, that's
the
actually
damage
huge.
if it was too low,
It's actually
felt
huge.
so bad because you would just block and like go into guard breaks or do something else.
If you
or just
dodge the
feint to
bash, you
parry,
get
would
GB. I
you
think.
will always get a lot more damage out of it. So we wanted to keep it high. But after it's been out for a little while, turns out that, well, we kind of knew this, but her bash is the best bash in the entire game. Fully unreactable at all levels. Yeah, you can kind of pre-dodge it, but then if Valkyrie reads you, she can just hold it and hit you back a little bit later. So dealing a little bit less damage here should be pretty good. Again, like all of these changes, and I'll get back to it in the end, but we're keeping an eye on things, right? So if this still feels too high, we can always readjust. It's not a problem. So that's the important thing here to know that like we're doing these changes now, and then if we need to do more, we always do more.
I like
we've been
that.
Doing a lot of these things. So
Yeah, for sure.
Small changes
we've
now,
also
and if they
lowered
need
the
to
distance
increase the
that
changes, they can always do
shield
it.
Tackle moves. So now it moves 0.5 meters less. So essentially, is when you go, you tap your heavy.
Thank you for the
your
sub.
shield, like your shield tackle, you can hold it.
Jaded.
When you release it, she would move quite a bit forward. So she's losing half a meter of distance. You can't quite like babysit gank, stay on the sidelines, catch people from super far. So that should be like it's an interesting nerf here because it's not some things that we often do, but for this specifically, it makes a big difference there.
I love the concept of the babysit gank too.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I've heard that one before, but now I'm imagining Valk the babysit.
Yeah. So also as well, shield tackle strike, it no longer chains on miss. So initially we had it that they would chain on miss because we wanted to make sure it was like safe. Again, because it's the best bash in the game right now. We've completely removed the ability for it to chain on miss. It's fully unreactable. We didn't want to keep like extra damage on top of it, potentially get a potential parry if you dodge. Like it's just if you manage to dodge it, you're gonna get a guard break out of it. You're gonna be able to punish it.
Thank
That's all
you.
good.
Thank you.
That was kind of really requested there as well.
Yeah.
Like for such a potent bash, a potent attack, you need to be able to be punished like appropriately for this. So that works well.
Yeah.
We've also adjusted our damage curve for chain and heavy finishers. So the chain one does 26 instead of 27, and the finishers do 28 instead of 30. So we want to lower damage a little bit. Damage has been creeping up a little bit too much lately. We do some experiments. We do to try sometimes and we want to just readjust it downwards enough so that the characters are still good, but they're gonna have to work a little bit more to get to where they need to go.
Gotcha.
Next, very very big nerf, but again, it should still be good. Is there a zone attack, right? So
Yeah,
we
that
had
zone
buffed
attack
it
was
to 500
quick.
MS while we were doing the testing rounds, and we're like, yeah, okay, it feels good. And then it comes to live, and it's like, well, it's a massive zone attack with huge trajectories, with a soft frame 2 shield tackle, with all sorts of crazy properties. And at 500 MS, it became such an insanely good group fighting tool that we need to tone it down a little bit. So at 6, it's still good, right? You'll still hit people externally. You'll still get all that good stuff going, but it's going to be a little bit slower, easier to react to from external, from the people you're working against. So it's not meant to be an unreactable tool. It's meant to be something to be able to hit people externally and do that sort of good stuff there.
Yeah.
So it being slowed down a little bit should be enough to make it a lot more manageable. And on top of that, we've also adjusted the weapon trajectories on her zone attack, so they have a little bit less reach, right? Because they used to have massive reach with that really big spear. And we've also adjusted their start and end positions, so the trajectories themselves, the kind of hitboxes, they match the weapon swing better, right?
Okay.
Like it normally, there was a bit of an offset here, and it wasn't super clear. You would get hit early. Didn't look like you were getting hit. So we've kind of tweaked these a little bit so that it looks better and it
I wonder if
feels
they're
better
nerfing Yorm.
fighting against her.
Sure.
So that's where we're going for Valk.
And what about those
so yeah,
testing grounds?
Significant nerfs.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
Nucia.
I'm really hoping that this is gonna help the character get unbanned. We know like she was banned or like sort of banned in a lot of competitive play. So with this, we're hoping
the Nucia and Lawbringer.
Bring her back.
Bring her back.
So
right?
she's gonna be okay now.
I wonder how that went.
We still want her to be strong, right?
Oh, of
it's not
course,
like we don't want to have a really bad character there. So that should be like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Perfect. So next up, Tiandi.
Yes, there
so
we go,
we've
baby.
Also done some nerfs to Tiandi.
We're on a roll, man.
Tiandi fell a little bit under the radar for a lot of people.
Yes, VALK and Tiandi are gone. Yes.
People were like super hyped about VALK. They're like, oh yeah, she's super good, blah, blah, and then came out. People were really focused on Valkyrie. But Tiandi was also low-key real strong. I know some players are starting to recognize
top Tiger dodge,
more.
less damage.
And so, like, I think I saw in
Dragon
chat
kick
earlier,
miss recovery.
Tiandi and Valk were banned in competitive duels. So I'm like,
oh, wow.
maybe this is also going to help there.
Dragon kick follow does 20 now.
Some change to Tiandi as well to make sure that the character has to work a little
Zone
bit more.
attack, oh, perfect.
Want to go.
Medium hit reaction instead of
damage.
heavy.
They're still super slippery. The idea of having a really slippery Tiandi is super cool to us, and screaming his name all the time too. That's always cool.
It's
but right?
Is that the cool part? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But
right,
at the same time, like it's interesting here that we're able to tone down some aspects of the hero so that it's less frustrating to play against.
Right.
And as Tiandi, you have to work more to get to your damage.
Yeah.
So to get it started, light finishers now deal 10 damage down from 12. They're 400 MS, unreactable for
Pab. Hold on, let me hear their reasoning. Hold on.
The entire world who can react to those
consistently.
So getting slightly lower damage here.
I like that. I want to know,
like I was saying, a little bit more to get to where they need to go and to be able to defeat opponents. Same with top Tiger dodge that deals 10 instead of 12. With the mix-up that you always get into after your finishers, from front dodge into like either top Tiger dodge, going to palm, going to all those things. Want to make sure that like Tiandi still can apply pressure, but at the same time doesn't apply insane pressure with too much damage looping over and over and over.
Yeah, I think you can punish with GB.
Next up, we have Dragon Kick miss recovery. It's now 700 MS up from 600. Now that doesn't really seem like much, right? Like it's just 100 MS more recovery, right? The big difference here is that normally when you're looking at like how things work, when you're able to dodge it, all that sort of stuff works, is that at 700 MS, Tiandi has to make
Dragon Kiss. Yeah, I heard that
whether
too.
They're going to recovery cancel the recovery with a dodge or not. When it was at 6, a lot of the time, like most of the time, you could side dodge it, and Tiandi did nothing and could counter guard break if you attempted to guard break.
No.
So because of this, it created a lot of issues where you don't need to commit to anything. You just throw a kick, and if it misses, you're safe.
Yeah.
Unless your opponent did a dodge attack, and then you could even like counter that also a little bit more. So it's like, well, it's an attack that deals a lot of damage at the end and needs to be able to be countered properly. So it being at 700, it forces a Tiandi to do something. Because if you decide not to do a recovery cancel, you will get grabbed by a guard break.
Right.
And then when that ends up happening, you take at least like 24 damage most of the time. So it kind of like dials down that mix up a little bit. And we really want to make Tiandi players have to commit to their kicks, commit to the recovery cancel, and get into that.
Commit to the kicks, Tiandi players. That's
exactly
the big
right.
one there.
Next up is the Dragon Kick follow-up, right? So the heavy that you do after a Dragon Kick. We lowered the damage down to 20, up from it used to be 24. So again, damage nerfs there. That kick is probably one of the better bashes in the entire game. Like that's feintable. It's very, very strong with all the recovery cancels, all the soft feints, everything you can do. So lowering the damage down to 20 is good. It's not like, again, it's lower, it's 4 damage less, but again, it kind of goes towards our philosophy of you're going to have to work a little bit more to get to where you need to go.
Right. Yeah.
And you can still recovery cancel afterwards on hit and go into a front dodge palm or whatever and keep the pressure going. So that kind of works there.
Yeah.
We've also adjusted zone attack. So the first hit now causes a medium hit reaction instead of a heavy hit reaction.
Okay.
That helps in a lot of situations where when you do a heavy hit reaction, your opponent is kind of stuck in a situation where like they're in recovery for longer, right?
Okay.
So because of that, you dodge later, you block later, you get to parry a little bit later. So all those things added up to giving Tiandi way too much from advantage when he used to land that zone. It goes into a kick as well for the second hit, so you can do a lot of different things. So getting it back to a medium hit reaction kind of puts it on the same level as like
Tiandi's feats are really good.
Heavies. So it makes a lot more sense there to have that. It was a weird interaction. It probably didn't need to be heavy at first, but whatever. So it's good. It's a good time to fix it now. So that's great. And then finally, we've also adjusted the chain timings from opener lights, opener heavies, as well as all tiger and dragon dodges to the finishers, so to light and heavy finishers. They used to be from 100 to 300 ms, so you could chain to them very, very, very quickly.
Okay.
And now they're from 2 to 3, like which is like the more standard timing that we have. But one of the big things that this does is that if you throw a heavy, because beforehand, like on live right now, if you throw a heavy and then you go into a 400 ms light, with the chain timing to parry those lights, even if you were able to, right? If you read a parry, you could parry on a single frame. You had a single frame to parry instead of like a much wider window. So with this being delayed a little bit more, you have 100 ms at least to parry every single time if your opponent kind of mashes and buffers it. So we want to make it like it's when you do read and you get, oh yeah, I can do this, then you're actually able to do it, right? So it lowers Tiandi's pressure a little bit in those situations. But again, it's a lot for reducing frustration for playing against the hero. So really have that kind of better feeling there of, well, okay, you know, it's not so bad and we're able to deal with them a little bit better.
Gotcha. Wow. That's
it for Tiandi. Again, like I was saying for VALK, also applies for Tiandi. We're keeping an eye on the hero. We know they were a little bit too strong. So we're starting with these nerfs. If we need to do more, we'll do more in the future. So no worries there.
There we go. So again, commit to the kicks, and he'll still be the loudest hero out there on the field.
Yeah, most likely. Right? Yeah, that's a big thing.
Okay.
All right. So
hero improvements. Whoa.
Right? So for Kenzo and Shaman, we've adjusted the miss recoveries on their heavy finishers. They used to be like 1,000 or 1,100 ms depending on the hero. They're now back to 700. Right. So at that speed. What it does is that it makes those heavy finishers a lot safer when you miss them, right? So we want to encourage players to use them, to let them fly, and to actually go, well, I can use it and not be crazy vulnerable. But if I'm using them in a team fight, somebody dodges them or whatever. So we really want to make sure that those attacks are, like I said, they're safer.
Shigoki heavy finisher miss, okay.
And that you get like a bit of like better frame advantaging. It just feels better to use. Right? It's pretty simple. It brawls down to that, so that
feels better.
Yeah. So for Shigoki, we've also adjusted their heavy finisher miss recoveries at 700. Same reason for Kenzo and Shaman. Makes a big difference for Shigoki as well, right? Like
small updates.
Big swing, so that's great. And then the next little line is really interesting for me. So heavy finishers now gain uninterruptible stance at 100 ms.
What was it before?
Instead of, I think it was like 4 or something.
Oh, that's a lot better.
So
yeah, that's a lot better.
If you've been following the game for a little while, you might remember that it used to be at that timing before.
Right.
When we did, like, I think it was a rework that we did on Shigoki that we put that timing there.
Right.
And it felt good, but at the same time, Shigoki could chain on miss from his side dodge headbutts. And what this caused is that Shigoki on a defensive action could go side dodge headbutt. Opponent reads that they're doing that, dodges it, tries to do a dodge attack, tries to do a side dodge, into a garbage or whatever. Shigoki just goes into their heavy finishers.
Hold the heavy,
trades with dodge attacks that are not bashes, which is most of the cast.
Right.
Is able to trade with them, massively win in damage because they're big heavy finishers, and that caused a lot of issues. But because of the dodge changes that we've done recently, where side dodge bashes cannot chain on miss anymore, we're now able to bring this back.
Oh, nice.
And so
this is down. I have no idea. We're watching the Warriors.
That kind of gives us like a better footing for some of these types of changes to come in the future. This is like the first step. We're looking at doing more and more and more, but it's like an example of the type of things we can do. This applies to front dodge headbutt, for example, right? So you can still chain on miss on a front dodge headbutt. That's not a problem, but it's more counterable. You can't really dodge with it. It's more like you can like light people out of it or whatever. You have to be more proactive. So that's great. It's gonna be harder to punish, but at the same time, like characters like Shigoki kind of need to have that pressure and have that sort of stuff. So that's what I find really interesting here is that we've done those changes. It helps us do more in the future and balance things a lot better.
Nice. Very cool.
And next up for Centurion, so zone attack now costs 9 stamina per hit, down from 12. And we've
better
also
hit
adjusted the zone attack hit trajectories to better match the weapon visuals. Again, we want to have Centurion players be able to use their zone attacks a lot more in the minion lane against multiple players. Centurion is a hero that kind of struggles in group fights a little bit. So with this, with a much, much, much lower stamina cost, like at 9, 3 hits is 27 stamina. It's not a ton. you're okay generally.
Mhm.
Like it's less than some characters have like that cost 30, right? So
Yeah.
that's good. It's 3 hits. You can mow down like the minion lane if you want. A lot of good stuff. So we want to have there. And then the trajectories are also like a little bit bigger, so it's easier to hit people externally and get into that good mood of, well, okay, I'm gonna defend myself and hit people.
Mhm.
So that's all good there.
There you go. Nice.
And then finally, we have weapon trajectory updates. So we've adjusted the weapon trajectories again to better match weapon visuals for the following attacks, right? So for Warmonger, all of our side heavy openers and finishers have better trajectories, flatter, a little bit bigger, means you can hit people externally
Right.
way better, right? So a lot of what we're trying to do with a lot of these attacks is make sure that you can use them defensively as well as offensively. And so having that be able with a Warmonger, also for a Griffon that you
Wow.
have there, to be able to hit people externally, right? You're throwing this
So
big
Griffin
heavy,
got better
Yeah.
'cause there's somebody
trajectory on
there,
that
you wanna be
side
able
heavy.
to
That's
hit
going to
them.
be huge.
So with flatter trajectories, they don't necessarily match the angle of the weapon perfectly,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, like it hits people better. It feels better. So we're in a
That might be
situation
really huge. I might
overall
got
for
to try
this.
that
It's
out.
great. And then for Griffon, basically all of Griffon's side light and heavy attacks, so openers, chains, and finishers, I've also had updated trajectories. They're bigger, they have more reach, they're flatter. So
Wow.
again, it's another big buff to Griffon. And
Yeah.
we've seen that, like, right. So
Yeah.
Griffon,
Yeah.
like, it's interesting because we did one small buff a couple of patches ago. I don't remember exactly how many because it's all a blur at this point. But where we made front dodge light being enhanced, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So because it's enhanced, it opened up Griffon quite a bit from one small change.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we're trying to go for now a little bit is taking a lot of these heroes that might be underperforming a little bit and trying to do like little incremental updates.
That's going to
over
be, oh
time
man, that's going to be
to
a lot
see
of
where
fun.
they'll end up.
You got
Because
people that
sometimes you
like
do,
to
like, too
dodge.
much at once,
That side
everything
heavy
blows
is
up,
going
it's
to
like,
clip
this is way too
every
strong or whatever. So
time.
having that kind of
Oh, I'm
feeling
going to
there
like that.
of we're incrementally getting heroes higher and better and better,
Mhm.
that works well. And because our patch schedule, like we do a lot more updates,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're able to, like, we do like updates on pretty much every single
Right.
title
Right.
update. So it's great. We have we're able to get all that stuff going. So that's amazing. We've done that in the past as well. So
Mhm.
that feels really good for me.
Yeah, again, we're just kind of continuing on this schedule. Again, every 6 to 7 weeks we
Yeah.
have a patch. We're always doing balance, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like we are a live game. We're going to continue to iterate and take feedback into account and look at that. And so I think
Exactly.
that's really cool. So thank you so much for sharing that. And speaking of feedback too, we just recently wrapped up a TG2, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So,
testing
a
grounds.
couple weeks ago, I think it's 2 weeks ago. We
Yeah.
just finished Lawbringer and Nusha testing grounds. So we're in the process of gathering all the feedback,
Oh, they're not
getting
done with it yet.
everything together, making calls, decisions, what are we going to do, what's going to be happening. So I would just say stay tuned for more information coming onto this.
Okay. Okay. I was just wondering where they were at with it.
But just like we're gathering all the feedback, right? So again, thanks to everybody that gave feedback, whether it's positive, negative, you loved it, you hated it, you loved like small
Well,
parts.
looks like your arm stays the
hated
same,
small
boys.
parts,
Let's
whatever
go.
it is.
Yeah.
It's all good. We're super happy to get everybody's information, everybody's
No
feedback,
warden buff.
and be able to act on it and look it up and make like good decisions afterwards.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so yeah, thank you, community, for that. Please keep up the great work with all the feedback. Again, we appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
So, and thank
W
you,
patch
JC,
notes,
so
though,
much for
overall,
coming on,
W.
sharing these updates, and